All right, I'm going to take a moment away from reviewing Trangia stoves here and show you my two backpacking stoves. So basically, I chose these pots because of a company called traildesigns.com. Basically, what Trail Designs has done is they've come out with an absolute genius piece of gear, which is a pot holder windscreen. And in order for this to work as efficiently as it does, it can't be a universal fit. This cone has to be shaped and dimensioned exactly to fit this pot. And so my favorite backpacker, a guy by the name of Andrew Skirka, recommends this setup. And after doing a lot of research and reading, I became a believer. And so I bought this, and so that's why I ended up with the Evernew titanium 0.9 liter pot, because that was the size and shape that Trail Designs made one of these cones for. So let me walk you through this cone. This is titanium. It has this interlocking, you notice this looks a little bit sharp or like an angle. That's because it goes right in there like this. It interlocks and sects with something like a dovetail, and then it sits as a pot holder and a windscreen. Yeah, so what you may know about alcohol stoves is that you need some sort of pot support, and I'll show you one example of what that pot support could look like. So this is also by Evernew. Yeah, this basically goes inside of a Trangia burner, which I don't have one at handy, sorry. This goes inside of a Trangia burner and then supports the pot. The problem is that it doesn't provide any windscreen protection. The other problem is that it's very wobbly. I'm gonna grab the burner. So this is the burner. That goes like that, and you could go like that. But this is pretty wobbly. I've used this system before. It's a pretty wobbly setup. And one of the big criticisms of alcohol burning stoves is that the pots are very wobbly because of how they're supported. The other thing is you then need a windscreen. Some guys will just take a piece of aluminum and turn it into a windscreen because it's very lightweight. But this does the job amazingly well. And when the pot is on this setup, it is so stable for a backpacking pot. It's really unbelievable. I mean, you have to work so hard to knock this thing over. So yeah, the other problem with something like this is you can't pull these out to snuff the burner by putting something on it because these are scalding hot. My friend burned his fingers on those once. So you have to try and blow it out, and blowing it out is really, really difficult. So yeah, so the thing that I'm holding in my hand is basically the second or third generation of what made Trail Designs quite famous in the backpacking world as a cottage brand. It's a couple of mechanical engineers, and they rejected the industry's standard of how fast can you get a cup of water to boil. And they basically said, well, it doesn't matter how fast you can do it. It matters how efficiently you can do it. As an example, if you have a fireplace in your house, 90% of the heat that's in that log goes out the chimney. It doesn't really matter how fast it heats the house. It matters that you're throwing away 90% of the fuel. And so what Trail Designs did and helped teach the industry is that it doesn't really matter how fast your water boils. What matters is how many grams or ounces of fuel did you use to get it boiling. And so it's not the fastest setup in the world, but it's perfectly quiet and it's very efficient. So since we're talking about backpacking, we'll talk about grams. So this weighs 36 grams or 1.3 ounces. When you combine that with a Kojin, which is their alcohol burning stove, which is really nothing more than a very lightweight tin with a proprietary fleece which absorbs the fuel so that if you don't use it all, you don't lose it like in a conventional setup. And also it's very easy to blow out because the fleece allows you to blow it out very easily. That weighs 0.6 ounces. So together you got less than a 2-ounce setup. And for you who like grams, that's 54 grams. You compare something like this to, let's say, a Trangia burner, and it's just so much heavier. basically the Trangia burner as it comes, 111 grams. Cogen as it comes, 17 grams. So it's like 9 times lighter. So it's really amazing. Anyway, going back to the backpacking stove setup. So yeah, so the pot comes from Evernew with the lid. This comes from Trail Designs. This comes from Trail Designs. Normally I have a mini Bic lighter like this. I've actually modified these and cut this off, so I just have the top because all you need is a spark. But we were family camping, so I didn't worry about grabbing a mini one. And then with this, one thing that's really nice about this setup is he also gives you a little fuel bottle that fits right up here. So you can carry your alcohol with you. That nests inside of there. That goes in there. Your lighter goes in there, and then your spoon can go in there. And that way, when you're ready to eat, all you gotta do is grab a meal, water, and this whole setup. In fact, sometimes I even put my dehydrated Ziploc bag meal in here, so you have everything in one shot. So for spoons, what a lot of people do, what Andrew Skirker recommends, is buy one of these cheap 99-cent GSI spoons and cut off the handle, and it'll sit in there. I did that for a long time. It worked fine. The only thing is I tend to burn the ends on mine. I don't know if he has that problem, but I have that problem. This little MSR spoon is also a good one. It's a little flimsy when you're really trying to mix and stir something that's really heavy, but it works great. I enjoy carving and woodworking, so I made this one. And just for fun, I made that one. And this one, which is even lighter. And this one, which didn't turn out that good, but that's for this other stove I'll show you in a moment. Yeah, just to give you an idea on weights. So like a titanium spoon is coming in at 17. Of course, this is a bit longer. A plastic spoon, 11, so better than titanium in terms of weight. Plus, what I don't like about titanium, if you're camping in colder weather, you do not want to touch something like this in the morning when it's 33 degrees. It sucks the heat out of your hand. So I'm really not a fan of titanium stuff. This little bamboo guy, the bamboo ones are actually the lightest, 5 grams, and you have to make it yourself, and it's fun. This one does fit in the pot. This one also fits in the pot. This one I think is a little bit heavier. I like this one. And the foldable one is also really nice. A little bit heavier, but it's nice to get your hand a little bit up and out of the way of the pot. So yeah, so what I'll typically take with me on a trip is basically that setup. And that comes in at 208 grams or 7.3 ounces. This is what I take from my wife and I. If I'm going on a solo trip, I will take a slightly different setup, which I'll show you now. So this is an Evernew 570 milliliter mug cup thing. I'm sorry, is this 570? Yeah, so I bought this for solo when I go solo. It's a little bit lighter weight. Let's see, 2.1 instead of 3.5. It's kind of a mug setup, so you can kind of drink right out of it easily. I did replace the little red things that came on it. They weren't big enough, and I kept burning my hands, so I carefully removed these, threaded the metal through these silicone tubing, which was a real pain in the butt, but now I have full coverage all around. Same thing from Trail Designs. This little cone, I think they call it a Tri Calendra cone. Sorry, Trail Designs, if I butchered that. I'm not real big on the nomenclature, but basically it works just like the other one. The tie comes from it being titanium, and the tri comes from that it can burn alcohol, solid fuel like Espit, or you can even build basically a little campfire under there, which I've never done myself. I do have a Kelly kettle, which you're always building a little campfire to boil water. But I've never had to do it. I've never run out of alcohol, but it's a nice alternative knowing that you may run out of alcohol. And if you really need to boil something, you can always still use some sticks and build a little fire. Trail Designs gives you a nice little Tyvek sleeve to hold this in place. but it always wanted to blow away from me, and I think a rubber band's just simpler. You can also carry a couple rubber bands in your pack for multi-use items, and then always use it for that. They give you a little fuel bottle that goes right up there, along with a Bic Mini and a little spoon, and you're off to the races. 4.2 ounces. Now, they don't come with lids. The lid that Evernew developed for it, I think, is awful. Instead of sitting inside the pot like that, where it won't come off if it scrapes, they basically have it like this, where it's like a hat. So basically always wants to pop off. It's big, it's heavy, it's really expensive too, and for me it just makes no sense. So I bought a piece of titanium. In fairness, this is a little bit too stout. This is thicker than it needs to be, but I bought it for a different project and I had it already. So I made this. I don't have a very good way to crimp the edge over, so it's a little bit gnarly looking, but it does work. I got a few holes to let me know when it's boiling. And so that's my solo setup that I take when I go. And that comes in with the lid at 5.2. So I save a little bit of weight over this, which is pretty minimal. The main reason I bought this is because I was going with a bigger group and I was loaning this to a friend, and so I needed something. And I am a bit of a nerd. I know that there's not huge amounts of value in saving 2 or 3 ounces and spending $100, but I do enjoy the approach of just going as small and minimal as possible, seeing how light you can get your pack. For me, it's something like a challenge, and so I enjoy it. So I know that spending $100 to save 2 ounces is stupid in and of itself. You don't need those 2 ounces back, but again, it's a fun challenge. So yeah, that's a little bit about my backpacking stoves, what I prefer in terms of spoons, and yeah, I hope that helps somebody. I hope at least somebody finds it interesting. And if you are in the backpacking stove world, I'll just say this. I've owned a few products from Jetboil. I've owned a few products from MSR. I've used a Kelly kettle. I've used some cheap butane stoves off of Amazon as I was getting back into it with my family. We just bought a couple of cheap ones. And I've also used a homemade alcohol stove called a Super Cat, which is made out of a cat food tin. And with all of that experience behind me, I can only say that not only would I recommend this, but I would highly recommend it for the vast majority of applications. If you're in super cold weather, that's a little bit different. You probably need a liquid fuel stove. If you don't like cooking hot meals, well, you don't need a stove at all. But for someone who's wanting readily available fuel that doesn't have to be purchased at an outdoorsy store like REI, and a lightweight setup and a quiet setup, this is a really, really great option. The last thing that I'll say, I know that butane stoves that run on the little spin-on canisters are popular. One thing that I absolutely hated about those, I never knew how much fuel was in the canister. I never knew if I had 1 meal or 6 meals left to go. And with alcohol, you can know exactly how much you have left, exactly how much you need to take. You don't have to worry about running out of butane. The amount of butane you consume varies with temperature and humidity, things like that. And I just hated always feeling like I had to have 2 canisters with me in case one went out, and then you get back and you still have that full canister that you never used. So that's the appeal for me of alcohol stoves. Light, efficient, inexpensive. You can see exactly how much fuel you have left. You can pick up the fuel almost anywhere. There's a Walmart or a gas station or an AutoZone or O'Reilly's, Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it. So that's my sales pitch. I hope it helps somebody. Have a great day.